Celtic are set to pocket a significant windfall from this summer's World Cup, and we will tell you exactly who is going. There is also a major transfer target emerging ahead of the summer rebuild, a key injury update on one of the Hoop's most important players, and a brutal verdict on this season's signings that is hard to argue with. Plenty to get into today, but first make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Alistair Johnston has spoken openly about the period when Wilfried Nancy was in charge of Celtic, and his comments are revealing. The right-back has admitted he let his former manager down, not through any lack of effort or commitment, but simply because injury kept him off the pitch at exactly the moment Nancy needed him most. Johnston worked under Nancy before joining Celtic and understood his system better than most in that dressing room. The way Nancy wants his fullbacks to play, stepping inside in build-up, supporting midfield, getting involved early in attacking moves, is something that requires players who know it instinctively. Johnston had that. The problem was he was nowhere to be seen when it actually mattered. A hamstring issue ruled him out for the entire period Nancy was in charge. Without a right-back who understood the system, Celtic looked disjointed, never settled into a clear shape, and results quickly turned. The manager did not get the chance to sort it before it was too late. Johnston told Record Sport, "It was a difficult situation. I felt for him. I really felt that I let him down to the degree that I couldn't be out there on the pitch to help really show the lads what he wanted on the grass, in training and ideally in the matches. Look, he is still a good coach. It just wasn't a perfect fit. The timing was unbelievably difficult, and I think he would be the first one to admit that. But at the end of the day, I think the buck stops with the players." That last line is the most interesting one. Johnston is not placing all the blame on the manager. He is pointing the finger squarely at the players as well. They had a chance to adapt to something new, and by his own admission, they did not do it. That is a candid and honest reflection on a period that most at Celtic Park would rather forget. Now, for the main story, is Celtic have been linked with a Danish midfielder who is attracting serious interest from across Europe, and the summer window is still months away. Silas Anderson has been on Celtic's radar since January, according to reports, and his name has now firmly resurfaced. The 21-year-old plays for Häcken in Sweden and has made 50 appearances for the club, contributing 6 goals and 3 assists while earning 7 caps for Denmark under 21. He only recently signed a new deal, keeping him at the club until 2029, which means any move will cost money. The competition is already building. German club FC Köln are understood to be weighing up a bid, particularly with uncertainty around their own midfield heading into the summer. FC Copenhagen are also reported to have scouts watching him, and according to both Danish media and British sources, Celtic and Rangers have both been monitoring him too. German outlet Express described Anderson as both technically skilled and strong in the tackle, exactly the kind of profile that catches the eye for a club looking to add bite and quality in the middle of the park. The fit at Celtic makes sense. Callum McGregor has shouldered far too much of the burden in the deeper midfield role this season, and the squad needs someone who can share that responsibility. Anderson looks like the type who could do exactly that. The concern, as always with Celtic's recent recruitment, is whether they move quickly enough. Too many times in the last 2 windows, targets have drifted towards other clubs while Celtic have waited. If Anderson is genuinely the right player, this is a situation that needs to be acted on decisively and early. The competition already waiting in the wings makes that very clear. In other news, Alistair Johnston has delivered a positive update on his injury recovery, and the timing could not be better with the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampton coming this weekend. The Celtic right-back has missed the vast majority of the season after a serious hamstring problem that ended up requiring surgery. Just as he was building towards a return earlier in the campaign, the injury flared up again and set him back considerably further than anyone had anticipated. Johnston spoke candidly about the low point of that setback, telling Record Sport, "It was definitely one of the most difficult days when I realised that I had re-injured my hamstring and I needed to get surgery. It was just really frustrating. It felt like it was so unnecessary, taking the risk when I did it. But at the end of the day, you move on quickly. I still am lucky. You get to go in 6 days a week, and I've got a physio who's full-time with me, taking care of my every need and making sure that I come back stronger. I'm still getting paid. There's definitely worse things, worse situations in the world, as frustrating as it was to not be able to go out there and help my teammates. He also described this as probably the longest year of his life despite barely playing any football, with so much going on behind the scenes while the team's performances on the pitch were falling well short of what Celtic supporters expect. The positive news is that the body is now feeling good. He has put in the hours, done the recovery properly, and is getting back to where he needs to be. Whether that is in time for Sunday's semi-final remains to be seen, but the signs are encouraging. Getting Johnston back and firing for the run-in and into next season would be a significant boost for whoever takes charge of this club in the summer. In other news, 3 Celtic signings have been named among the worst transfers in the Scottish Premiership this season, and it is very difficult to argue against any of them being on the list. The Scotsman compiled a ranking of the 10 worst signings across the division, and Celtic claimed 3 spots. The names will not surprise anyone who has watched the Hoops this season. Michel-Ange Balikwisha tops the list of disappointments. He was a long-term target, tracked for over a year, before Celtic committed close to £5 million to bring him in from Royal Antwerp. The expectation was that this would be a statement signing. Instead, 16 appearances and 2 assists is all that has been produced. That is an extraordinary return for the investment made, and it has left supporters genuinely baffled. Joel Mavuka arrived in January and has been virtually invisible. 2 appearances, both in the Scottish Cup, amount to just 86 minutes of football. That is not a signing, that is barely a presence. Junior Adamu at least had one bright moment, scoring on his debut to force extra time against Dundee in the Cup. But 5 further appearances have come and gone without anything of note, and nobody is seriously suggesting his option to buy will be triggered. Benjamin Nygren stands as the clear exception, with 19 goals and 8 assists making him the standout performer in a Celtic side that has struggled all season. Julian Araujo also showed promise in January before injury cut things short. Beyond those 2, the recruitment has been extremely poor, and the summer rebuild now carries enormous pressure. 2 windows in a row cannot be wasted again. Lastly, there is some genuinely positive financial news for Celtic ahead of this summer, with the club set to receive a notable payout from FIFA's Club Benefits Programme as part of the 2026 World Cup in North America. The tournament, which is expanding to 48 nations for the first time, comes with a record $355 million set aside to compensate clubs for releasing players for international duty. That is a significant jump from the $209 million distributed at the Qatar World Cup 4 years ago. Celtic have a strong spread of internationals who are expected to feature. Kieran Tierney and Anthony Ralston are in line to represent Scotland if Steve Clarke's side come through qualification as expected. Alistair Johnston should be part of Canada's squad on home soil, with Austin Trusty also a strong contender for the United States. Beyond that, Benjamin Nygren is set to feature for Sweden, Dyson Maida for Japan, and Sebastian Tunekti for Tunisia. That's all the latest Celtic news for today. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Hail, hail.